Hello everyone, this is Uncle Yeow and the Singapore Story. Now today is the 23rd of March 2025. Now today also marks the 10th anniversary of the passing of Singapore's greatest son, Lee Kuan Yew, our founding Prime Minister. He passed away on the 23rd of March 2015. Alright. Now today we are going to discuss one of the very significant and important legacy that Mr. Lee has left behind for us. And that is on the topic of public housing. Alright, let's begin. Okay, this is the man who have actually started what is called the Singapore story. And one of the very important topic and critical issue that he has managed to solve for Singapore is actually on public housing. Now this year is also significant that we are celebrating SG60. In fact, Mr. Lee passed away just missing out on SG50. So today is significant because it is actually the 10th anniversary of his passing. Now when we talk about public housing, we must recognize that there was actually a major housing crisis in the 50s and 60s. People were living in poor conditions, slums, rundown shack. If you have an air-type house, it's actually considered quite good already. Now, how does air-type house look like in those days? Now, this is how an air-type house would look like in those days. Alright? But what is important, it is to note that in those days, housing, you don't have water, you don't have electricity, you don't have proper flush toilets. Alright? When you talk about water, normally you have to collect water and use water from a communal standpipe. Something like this. Alright? So you go to a communal standpipe and there you do your washing, you collect your water for cooking for the day, and that's how people do not have access to tap water in the beginning. And also there was no electricity. In those days, we had to resort to kerosene lamp like this one. But I must say, this kerosene lamp is actually quite bright. Alright, so most people would have kerosene lamp in their homes where they use at night, alright, for the night activities, like even for studying for students. And what is very interesting and important is that in those days, we don't have proper toilets. Toilet looks like this. Alright, it is actually a small little shed outside the house, and then at the bottom where they actually place a bucket. So when you go to the toilet, you actually do your business and then it goes into the bucket below. Now the man who is actually carrying the bucket and cleaning the bucket, they are known as night soil carriers. Now night soil, it is actually a term and euphemism for human waste or human feces. Now remember those days a lot of mothers would tell their children, boy, you better study hard. If you don't study hard, you end up being working as a night soil carrier. So this is what happened, alright. After they clean the bucket, they change and then they replace it and then they will collect the night soil and then they will deposit it into a truck. Now this truck is famous in those days. It is a 36-door truck, alright, a lot of cubicles where they then put in the buckets to ferry it to somewhere else where they can deposit all the waste. So that's night soil for you. And of course, when the PAP government came into power in 1959, one of the top critical issue to resolve was actually on housing. And that's where public housing came into being in the shape of HDB, Housing Development Board, which was set up in 1960, 1 year after the PAP won the election in 1959, with LKY being the first Prime Minister. So 1960, HDB was set up to champion, to build houses for Singaporeans, major housing reform. Previous to that, public housing was actually what is called the SIT, Singapore Improvement Trust, under the British. However, under the British, previous 10 years before HDB, before 1960, SIT only managed to build 20,000 flats, which means on average it's only about 2,000 flats a year. But after HDB came into being, from 1960 to 1965, HDB actually built more than 50,000 flats, which means that every year is more than 10,000 flats. Alright, that's how fast HDB was actually built. But in the beginning, a lot of people don't accept, they don't like to go high-rise. They prefer to be grounded. They want to stay on the ground. What happened was, in a major fire in 1961, called the Bukit Ho Swee fire in Tiong Bahru. Now this is how the fire broke out and how it looks like. Okay, this was a major fire in Tiong Bahru, okay, where 3,000 homes were destroyed. Very quickly, the fire was very fierce. 16,000 people were displaced. Alright, this is known as the Bukit Ho Swee fire. You can see, alright, people were all collecting all their things, they were all rushing, trying to get away from the disaster. Now, because of this incident, then people have got no choice. Now, when they were given the chance to go and opt for HDB flat, everybody start to take it up. That's how HDB flat got started. In fact, a lot of people are now beginning to accept high-rise living. And HDB flat is actually a lot much better than your previous housing type. Because why? You have all the amenities. You have water, you have electricity, you even have got flush toilets. And right from the beginning, Lee Kuan Yew was very importantly, he was stressing that everybody should be able to own their own homes. Home ownership scheme. Now this is important because he said, if you want our sons to go and serve NS and be prepared to defend the country, then they must have a stake in the country. And the best stake for everyone is actually to own your own homes. So that's where we have this home ownership. In Chinese, we say 居子有其物. That means everybody should own their own homes. And it's true today. If you look at HDB, more than 85% of us all live in HDB flats. And more than 90% of those living in HDB flats actually own the HDB flats. So this is where we call really you owning your own homes. By doing this, everybody take good care of their housing, alright, and their surroundings. So this is the start of HDB. Now today, if you look at HDB flats, alright, for most foreigners, when they come and they say, oh, this looks very much like private housing, private condos. But in actual fact, these are actually HDB flats. Now, why is HDB flats critical and important? In fact, our public housing is probably the best in the world. Alright, why? Number one, you have all the amenities available. Every HDB precinct is self-sufficient. You have public transport, you have markets, you have hawker centers, you have all the various types of shops, clinic, some even have got polyclinics, schools. So everything is very complete, very self-contained. In fact, HDB flats is a lot more convenient as compared to staying in a private condo. In a private condo, most times you need to own a car to move around. But with HDB flat, the bus stop is only probably a stone's throw away. And if you are lucky, you may also stay next to a MRT station. Otherwise, you take the bus, feeder bus to go and catch the MRT. And on top of that, what is important and beautiful about HDB estate, all we don't have to get wet from the bus stop because there is always a covered linkway from the bus stop to your home. So even for me, Uncle Yeow, I stay in Woodlands. The moment I board the train, I get onto the bus, feeder bus, I reach home, I walk by the covered linkway, I don't have to get wet. And this is something that most of countries in the world do not have. Alright? Only in Singapore. And not only that, our HDB flats are all very well maintained. In fact, there's regular washing, even every floor, corridor, every month there will be washing. And also every few years, 5 years, you get a new coat of paint. And that's why if you look around Singapore, foreigners come and they're really surprised and say, oh, your housing, they all still look so new. Yes, some could be 20, 30, 40 years old, but they are all very well maintained. That is the unique part about public housing, HDB flats in Singapore. And then if you look in Singapore, our most iconic HDB flat, public housing, this is known as Pinnacle at Duxton. Alright. This is actually the tallest, highest public housing in the world. 50 stories high. Alright. And in the beginning, you can get a flat for maybe 300,000-400,000. But today on the resale market, they're all selling for more than $1 million. So your HDB flat is actually a very important investment and asset. Alright, of course, not for speculation, but it has got a value in the long term. Alright, so this is why all over the world, a lot of people actually envy us for our public housing. A lot of places, they don't have access to public housing. And why can Singapore build public housing? One very important fact is that Lee Kuan Yew actually enacted what is called the Land Acquisition Act in 1966. And then by 1967, it came into force. The government was able to acquire more than 70% of the land from private individuals, from the estates of private individuals. So today, the government is actually the biggest landowner. Alright, they have got the biggest land bank. And it is because of this land bank that they are able then to allocate a lot of land for public housing, for gardens, for greenery. So a lot of things can be done because of this Land Acquisition Act. Most other countries are not able to do this. Even in Hong Kong, the bulk of the land are actually owned by all the private developers. So the government don't have much choice in terms of building public housing. And it's very, very expensive because of that. So we are fortunate in Singapore that we can all live in HDB flats. In fact, I encourage young people, say you have got 2 chances, alright, for BTO flats. A lot of people complain, oh, unaffordable. I say no. The moment you have a job, 1,500 and above, you can afford a flat. Now, manage your expectation. Don't go for the big flats, 5-room or even ECs. Go for a smaller flat. Begin with a smaller flat, maybe a 4-room, even a 3-room is good. Even a 2-room is fine. And then when you have the means, you upgrade because you have a second chance, a second choice. So this is, to me, a very important blessing for Singapore. And the man responsible is none other than Lee Kuan Yew, our founding Prime Minister. Alright. So with that, this is what I'm going to share with you today on the anniversary of the passing of our greatest son, Lee Kuan Yew, 10 years ago. And public housing is one of his very, very important legacy. Thank you very much. See you.